Ladies and gentlemen, I want to talk to you today about something that weighs heavily on many hearts, the tendency to focus on others instead of ourselves. In a world filled with distractions, comparisons, and opinions, it is easy to lose sight of the path God has laid before us. But today, I urge you, focus on yourself, not others. Comparison is one of the most common struggles we face in life. From the time we are young, we are taught to measure ourselves against others. We compare grades in school, athletic ability, popularity, financial success, and even personal relationships. The world constantly tells us to look at others to determine our worth. We see people around us excelling, and we feel inadequate. We see others reaching milestones, and we question why we haven't gotten there yet. The more we focus on others, the more we lose sight of our own path. Instead of celebrating what we have, we dwell on what we lack. Instead of recognizing our own blessings, we become consumed by what someone else has that we do not. This is a dangerous trap, one that leads to frustration, bitterness, and even resentment. Comparison is not only damaging to our self-worth, but it also distances us from God's plan for our lives. When we are busy looking at someone else's journey, we fail to recognize the unique journey God has set before us. Each person is walking a different path, with different struggles, different timing, and different lessons to learn. What God has for someone else is meant for them, and what He has for you is meant for you. Just because someone else seems to be ahead does not mean you are behind. Just because someone else appears to be more successful does not mean you are failing. God does not measure your life by the same standards the world does. He does not compare you to anyone else. He looks at you individually with a plan that is perfectly crafted for your life alone. The more time you spend comparing yourself to others, the more you rob yourself of the joy of the present moment. When you are focused on someone else's success, you fail to see your own progress. You miss the small victories in your own life because you are too distracted by what someone else has accomplished. You begin to feel like nothing you do is good enough. But the truth is, God is working in your life in ways you may not even realize. The path He has set before you is designed specifically for you, with every step leading to a greater purpose. But you cannot walk that path if your eyes are always on someone else's. You cannot fulfill your calling if you are too busy trying to live someone else's life. Instead of looking at others, focus on your own growth. Ask yourself, am I better than I was yesterday? That is the only comparison that matters. Each day, strive to be a better version of yourself. Improve your character, deepen your faith, and strengthen your relationship with God. Use your talents and gifts to serve Him in the best way you can. When you do this, you will no longer feel the need to measure yourself against others. You will find contentment in knowing that you are exactly where you are supposed to be. It is easy to fall into the habit of comparing, but you must remind yourself that it does not serve you. It only distracts you from your true purpose. When you stop looking at others and start focusing on yourself, you will find peace. You will begin to see the beauty in your own life instead of envying someone else's. You will understand that God's timing is perfect and that He has a plan for you that is unfolding exactly as it should. You are not behind, you are not lacking, and you are not forgotten. You are exactly where God wants you to be, and He is guiding you towards something greater. Stay focused on your own journey and trust that He is leading you exactly where you need to go. Every person on this earth has a unique purpose, a calling that has been placed upon their life by God. No two individuals are the same, and no two journeys are identical. Yet so many people spend their lives trying to imitate others, trying to fit into a mold that was never meant for them. They compare their lives, their success, and their achievements to those around them, never realizing that they were created for something entirely different. The world teaches us that we must compete, that we must measure our progress against that of others. But God does not call us to live by the world's standards. He calls us to live by His. He has given each of us a unique path, and it is our responsibility to walk it faithfully. From the moment you were born, God placed specific talents, abilities, and gifts inside of you. He designed you with a purpose that no one else can fulfill. Your strengths, your experiences, and even your struggles are all part of the plan He has for you. But when you focus too much on others, you lose sight of what makes you special. You begin to doubt yourself, thinking that someone else is more qualified, more gifted, or more worthy. This kind of thinking is dangerous because it leads to insecurity and discouragement. When you constantly compare yourself to others, you begin to feel like you are not enough. But the truth is, God made you exactly as you are for a reason. There is nothing missing in you, nothing lacking. Everything you need to fulfill your purpose is already within you, but you must trust that God knows what He is doing. God's plan for your life is not dependent on anyone else. Your success is not tied to another person's journey. Just because someone else seems to be moving ahead does not mean you are behind. Just because another person has achieved something you desire does not mean that you have failed. God works in His own time, and His timing is always perfect. He knows when you are ready for the next step, and He will open the right doors at the right moment. But if you spend all your time watching others, you will miss what He is doing in your own life. You will become so consumed with their progress that you will fail to see your own. You may even start to chase after things that were never meant for you simply because you see others pursuing them. This is why it is so important to stay focused on your own calling and trust that God's plan for you is unfolding exactly as it should. Your purpose is too important to be distracted by comparison. When you spend time trying to be like someone else, you rob the world of the person God created you to be. There is something inside of you that only you can offer. There are people you are meant to reach, lives you are meant to impact, and work you are meant to do. But if you are too busy trying to imitate others, you will never fully step into the role God has given you. Instead of looking around and wondering why your life does not look like someone else's, embrace the path that God has set before you. Take ownership of your journey and trust that He is leading you in the right direction. Every great person in the Bible had their own unique calling. Moses was called to lead, David was called to fight, Esther was called to save, and Paul was called to preach. None of them had the same journey, but each one played a vital role in God's plan. If they had spent their time comparing themselves to others, they would have missed their purpose. The same is true for you. Your path is different, but it is no less significant. You were created for something great, something that only you can accomplish. Stay focused on that and trust that God will guide you exactly where you need to be. Success is not a competition. The world often conditions us to believe that life is a race, where only the strongest, the fastest, and the most talented can reach the top. We are taught to measure ourselves against others, to compare our progress with our peers, and to judge our worth based on how we stack up against those around us. This way of thinking leads to jealousy, resentment, and feelings of inadequacy. It causes people to chase after things that were never meant for them, simply because they see others attaining them. But God's blessings are not limited. There is no shortage of success in His kingdom. What He has planned for someone else does not take away from what He has in store for you. God does not look at life as a competition. He does not compare His children to one another. He does not rank them in order of who is the most gifted, the most successful, or the most worthy. Instead, He has a unique plan for each individual, a path that is designed specifically for them. One person's success does not mean another person's failure. Just because someone else is experiencing a season of growth, prosperity, or recognition does not mean that you have been forgotten. God works in His own time, and He blesses His children according to His divine plan. He knows what is best for each of us, and He gives according to what we need, not according to what the world deems as success. Many people waste valuable time and energy feeling bitter over someone else's achievements. They see another person excelling, and instead of celebrating, they grow envious. They allow comparison to steal their joy and cause them to feel as though they are not enough. But envy only leads to distraction. It shifts the focus away from what God is doing in your own life and places it on things that were never meant to concern you. When you focus on someone else's success, you risk losing sight of your own blessings. You may not even recognize the ways God is moving in your life because you are too busy watching someone else's journey. But the truth is, God has something special in store for you. Something that no one else can claim. Each person's path is different, and each person's timing is unique. What happens for one person today may happen for another person years from now. There is no need to rush or feel discouraged simply because your journey does not look like someone else's. The world may try to convince you that if you do not achieve certain milestones by a certain age, you have somehow failed. But God does not operate on the world's timeline. He knows exactly when you are ready to receive the blessings He has prepared for you. He is not in a hurry, and He does not make mistakes. When the time is right, He will bring everything together in a way that is greater than anything you could have imagined. Instead of allowing jealousy and competition to take root in your heart, choose to trust in God's perfect plan. Choose to be grateful for where you are and for what He has already given you. Celebrate the successes of others, knowing that their victories do not diminish your own. When you shift your perspective from competition to gratitude, you begin to see life through a new lens. You recognize that there is no need to compare, no need to rush, and no need to feel inadequate. You are exactly where you need to be, and the journey ahead is uniquely yours. Keep your focus on God's plan for your life, knowing that He is leading you to the blessings He has prepared specifically for you. Jesus stayed focused on His mission. Throughout His time on earth, He never allowed distractions, comparisons, or the opinions of others to deter Him from fulfilling the purpose for which He was sent. He walked with clarity, confidence, and obedience, fully aware of His role in God's divine plan. He did not concern Himself with the approval of man, nor did He seek validation from the religious leaders of His time. He did not compare His ministry to others or adjust His message to fit the expectations of the crowd. Instead, He remained steadfast, fully committed to the mission that had been entrusted to Him by the Father. Many times people tried to pull Jesus away from His purpose. The Pharisees attempted to challenge Him, discredit Him, and trap Him in His words. They spread rumors, questioned His authority, and sought to turn the crowds against Him. Yet Jesus never wavered. He did not waste time defending Himself against false accusations, nor did He retaliate against those who opposed Him. He stayed on course, teaching, healing, and proclaiming the truth with unwavering determination. He understood that His time on earth was limited, and He refused to let anything divert Him from His mission. Even His own disciples, at times, did not fully understand His purpose. Peter, in his zeal and devotion, once tried to prevent Jesus from speaking about His coming suffering and death. But Jesus rebuked him, making it clear that his mission was not about avoiding hardship, but about fulfilling the will of the Father. He was not swayed by emotions, personal desires, or the expectations of those around him. He kept his eyes on the path set before him, knowing that obedience to God was more important than pleasing people. Jesus also faced the temptation to take an easier route. In the wilderness, Satan offered him power, glory, and earthly dominion in exchange for compromise. He was given the opportunity to bypass suffering and take a shortcut to influence and authority. Yet Jesus refused. He knew that His purpose was not about gaining worldly power, but about bringing salvation to humanity. He did not allow temporary desires to overshadow His eternal mission. He resisted temptation, demonstrating that true strength comes from staying faithful to God's plan rather than seeking instant gratification. Throughout His ministry, Jesus encountered many opportunities to be distracted. Crowds followed Him, seeking miracles and signs, some with genuine faith and others merely looking for spectacle. People tried to make him king, to fit him into their own expectations of what the Messiah should be, yet Jesus never allowed public opinion to dictate his purpose. He withdrew to pray, spending time alone with the Father, ensuring that his heart and mind remained aligned with God's will. He understood the importance of spiritual focus, taking deliberate steps to stay centered on his mission. When the time came for him to fulfill his ultimate purpose on the cross, Jesus did not hesitate. He did not allow fear, pain, or betrayal to turn him away from the path he was destined to walk. He endured suffering, humiliation, and death because he knew that his sacrifice was necessary for the redemption of mankind. He was not concerned with how others perceived him, nor was he discouraged by the rejection of those he came to save. He remained committed to his mission until the very end, proving that true purpose is not found in seeking the approval of others, but in remaining faithful to God's calling. The example of Jesus serves as a powerful reminder that focus is essential in fulfilling one's purpose. There will always be distractions, criticisms, and temptations that try to pull people away from what they are meant to do. It is easy to get caught up in the opinions of others, to compare oneself to those around them, or to be swayed by temporary desires. But Jesus showed that none of these things matter when one is truly committed to God's plan. His life was a demonstration of unwavering dedication, showing that true success comes not from seeking validation from the world, but from faithfully walking the path God has set before each individual. You are accountable for your own actions. From the beginning of time, God has given each person the ability to make choices. And with those choices comes responsibility. It is easy to look at the lives of others and compare, to place blame on circumstances, or to make excuses for why things have not gone as planned. But at the end of the day, no one else is responsible for your journey except you. When you stand before God, He will not ask about the actions of others. He will ask about your faithfulness, your obedience, and your choices. It is common for people to shift responsibility onto others. They may blame their upbringing, their environment, or the challenges they have faced. They may look at those who seem to have more opportunities, more resources, or fewer obstacles and feel that life is unfair. But God does not judge based on what others have been given. He judges based on what you do with what you have. The parable of the talents makes this clear. The master did not compare one servant's success to another's. He simply asked if they had been faithful with what was entrusted to them. The one who buried his talent and made excuses was not excused because he had less than the others. He was held accountable for what he failed to do. Each person has been given a unique set of gifts, abilities, and opportunities. Some may seem to have more, others less, but God's expectation remains the same: faithfulness. He does not demand that you accomplish what someone else has accomplished, but He does call you to use what He has placed in your hands. If you focus too much on what others are doing, you may miss the opportunities that are right in front of you. If you spend your time blaming others or complaining about what you lack, you may never step into the fullness of what God has planned for you. Personal accountability is a principle that runs throughout Scripture. Adam blamed Eve, Eve blamed the serpent, and yet both were held responsible for their own actions. Saul blamed his people for pressuring him to disobey God, but it did not change the consequences of his decision. In contrast, David, when confronted with his sin, took full responsibility and repented before God. It was not his perfection that made him a man after God's own heart, but his willingness to own his mistakes and turn back to God. There is freedom in taking responsibility for your own actions. When you stop blaming others and making excuses, you realize that your life is in your hands. You cannot control what others do, but you can control how you respond. You cannot change the past, but you can make decisions today that shape your future. The choices you make daily, how you spend your time, how you treat others, how you pursue your calling, are what define your life. God has given you everything you need to fulfill His plan. He has equipped you with wisdom, strength, and the guidance of His Spirit. He has given you His Word as a lamp to your feet and a light to your path. He has placed people in your life to encourage and support you. But ultimately, it is up to you to walk in obedience. No one else can seek God for you. No one else can develop your gifts for you. No one else can be faithful on your behalf. When you stand before God, there will be no one to compare yourself to, no one to take the blame, no one to justify your inaction. There will only be the truth of how you lived, how you loved, and how you obeyed His calling. The measure of your life will not be based on what others did, but on what you did with what He entrusted to you.